This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now, from Studio B, your hosts, Spencer Linton and Jason Shepard.
BYU Sports Nation is live on a Friday. Your day-to-day play-by-play back in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Get your treats ready, folks. It's going to be a huge show. April 29th, wherever and however you're connected, great to have you with us. I am Spencer Linton, teamed up alongside Jason Shepard, a man who refuses to do the dance move of the year. It's called the Griddy.
That is true. I don't know if it's the dance move of the year because I'd never heard of it until this morning.
Well,
that will surprise nobody.
You're furthering my case that you haven't heard of it, so it probably is the dance move of the year.
Wow. Okay. All right out of the gate. Sure. You know who is all into it, though? BYU Football.
Indeed,
Check this out
indeed.
On TikTok. So this is the video here.
Okay.
And so this is the Griddy. Okay. All right.
Tyler Allgeier.
Okay. Soon to be drafted. We'll get into that a little bit later on.
Don't hurt yourself, Tyler.
Okay.
Do not hurt yourself.
Do not mess up the draft stock.
Lopa looks more like Rocky Balboa, like the little boxer step. I don't think Neil was actually trying. And then Chris Brooks. So
he added a little degree of difficulty with the beverage.
So here's the thing. It's a little bit confusing because you want to go naturally with the toe tap. It's not about the toe tap, Jason.
It's the heel tap.
It's about the heel tap.
The reason we know this is because this guy right here, Mr. Boy Band himself, watched a tutorial on it. So he's super cool. There it is. Look at that. Look, I don't want to hear anything about how great you looked. You had to watch a YouTube video on how to do it.
Listen, I just wanted to cover my bases, Jason. I wanted to make sure that I was going to the professionals to ensure that the heel tap was just so, and you got to have the arms right.
Okay, I'm going to give you your props. How-to video or not, you looked pretty cool doing it.
I was told, dude, you got to wear a hat. It's got to be backwards. You probably got to have some swaggy jacket on. You got to own it. I tried to own it. I'm sure I'm going to get roasted on that. Whatever. I embrace it. People, we're on television. If you think that we don't expect to be roasted on things, you're kidding yourself.
That's why I chose. That's why, like Jerry chooses not to run, I choose not to Griddy.
Speaking of which, here's Jason entering. Not even an attempt, Jason?
No. Look, I walked into this building with one thing, and I'm leaving with one thing, and it's called my dignity. Okay?
Not even one heel tap?
I have been in this business for a very long time. There are things that I have said and done that I'm embarrassed of. It happens to all of us. Mm-hmm. Those are things that happened on accident. I was not planning for those things to happen. I am not going to do something on purpose that I will never live down the rest of my life. So, no, I chose not to Griddy.
Yeah, well, I'm the guy that just says yes to everything. The 40-yard dash challenge, Griddies, racing Jerem on camera. Hey, whatever.
I'll race somebody.
Whatever.
I'm fine racing somebody.
Would you race Jerem?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
You'd probably beat him, huh? You think your gym technique, because of all of your leg days, you'd...
No, it's because of the lack of leg days. They're not messed up.
Welcome to a special Friday edition, a Griddy edition of BYU Sports Nation. Get your swag ready for this show lineup, Jason. Heel tap. It
is 10:04 Mountain Time. Yep. We have spent 4 minutes discussing the Griddy.
Yeah. This is the day and age we live in, Jason.
Yes. All right.
At some point, we will discuss BYU football schedule adjustments in the 2023 rundown. We found out yesterday that USC has gone bye-bye. They have added San Jose State, dropped BYU, not a shocker, because BYU is going to be in the Big 12. But there are 4 games remaining for BYU on the 2023 schedule. So if they play a 9-game Big 12 schedule and you got 4 still remaining, who's got to go? And why? Tyler Allgeier's hand-picked NFL team. Where do we want him to go? Forget the fit, because we all act like we're experts. We're not. But we can find our perfect ideal fit just based on our wants, right? And then Chad Lewis, former NFL player, Pro Bowler, a guy who got the Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl, is going to join us and talk about what it's going to be like for the BYU undrafted free agents. What's that process like? Because the majority of the prospects this year are probably going to go undrafted. And we're exchanging gifts with Baylor, Jason. Does Caleb Lohner count?
Exchange.
Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
Today is day 2 of the NFL draft with rounds 2 and 3 starting at 7 Eastern time. No running backs were taken during yesterday's first round, which is somewhat of a surprise. Tyler Allgeier is expected to be the first Cougar taken, possibly today. The draft will conclude tomorrow with rounds 4 through 7. Good luck to all the Cougars hoping to be drafted.
BYU baseball drops the first game of a very important series at San Francisco, 8-3. The Dons are in 6th place, BYU in 7th place. So needless to say, the Cougars need to rally hard here and pick up the last 2 wins of this series. They play again this afternoon in Game 2, 4 Eastern. You can listen to live coverage on BYU Radio with Greg Wrubell.
Staying with baseball, Reed McLaughlin was named the midseason NCBWA. That is the National College Baseball Writers Association Stopper of the Year Award watch list. So he's on the watch list. Okay, McLaughlin has pitched in 18 games this year, racking up 7 saves and 20 strikeouts in 18 2/3 innings.
BYU softball hosts Santa Clara at home tonight, a doubleheader. You can watch both games live on the BYU TV app. First game, 7 Eastern, 5 Mountain. Second game will begin roughly 30 minutes after the conclusion of the first contest. BYU in a must-win scenario if they have any hopes of winning the WCC title and a 13th consecutive conference championship. They're 31-10. Tournament team right now. They don't have much room for error, though, Jason. They got to take care of business today.
Maybe some of the girls can do the griddy as they're crossing home plate on a home run.
Violet Zavodnik does that, Jason.
I know.
Violet does that.
Let's go. Men's golf currently in 4th place at the WCC tournament, but only 3 shots off the lead. Cole Ponich is tied for first overall at 3 under par. Round 2 is today. You can follow along with live updates from the BYU Golf Instagram account, which is at BYUM Golf.
Listen, the heavy hitters of BYU men's golf are going to get going today. The fact that there's only 3 shots off the lead and the big names didn't play
haven't even
super well yesterday, it's good news for BYU men's golf. Women's track and field competed yesterday at the Penn Relays. Lexi Halliday finished first in the 3,000-meter steeplechase with a time of just under 10 minutes. Also, 3 top 10 finishes in the 1,500 meters. Carmen Alder, Kate Hunter, and Heather Hansen all representing well in the 1,500.
Well, we've had Cougars in the NFL. How about Cougars in the USFL? Bronson Kafusi, Zach Daw, and the Tampa Bay Bandits.
Love that.
Take on Tomasi Laulile and the Houston Gamblers tomorrow, 4 Eastern on Fox.
I'm a longtime Tampa Bay Bandits fan, Jason. I was asked a month ago who I would root for in the USFL.
Yes.
Clearly, it's the Bandits.
The Bandits. I'm going with the LA Express.
Okay.
They're not
Steve
even
Young throwback?
But they're not even
in.
How are they not back in? Everybody else is back in. Where's the LA Express?
It's LA. There's no room for another pro team in LA. Paisley Harding played 4 minutes in the Seattle Storm's preseason game last night against the Phoenix Mercury. Had 2 points and an assist. Made her only shot that she took. WNBA rosters must be down to 12 players by the start of the season on May 6th. Paisley, to her credit, hanging around.
She has a shot. She has a real shot in the WNBA. Absolutely.
All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
It's time to narrow down the schedule in 2023 for BYU football. The Cougars will be in the Big 12 in 2023. Did you know that, Jason?
Oh, I knew it.
Yeah. You felt it in your bones, which is why you were the guy that was pubbing that for the last decade, mostly on this show.
I wrote it in my book of remembrance the day that it happened.
It's a question of now whether or not BYU will play 9 games in conference or 8. We asked former Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby what it was going to be, and he said, I'd like to keep it at 9. So we're just anticipating that it's going to be 9 games for BYU in the Big 12.
9 games, Mrs. Bueller, 9 games.
In year number 1. you know, right?
That's right.
Which means BYU has 3 games left to fill in non-conference play. But they have 4 left on the schedule, Jason. Tennessee in Provo. That's never happened. At Arkansas. That's never happened. Southern Utah in Provo, and then BYU at Maverick Stadium in Logan, Utah for a rivalry game at Utah State. If you can only keep 3 of the 4, who does not make the cut?
Yeah, this one is kind of interesting, and it all really depends on what you value. Are you valuing the opponent? Are you valuing the ability to get more victories before you go into conference play. It really kind of boils down to that. This is how I view it. This is what I would put importance on. You've obviously already played at Tennessee.
Yes.
You have an opportunity to get Tennessee finally to return that trip back to Provo.
Yep.
That's an SEC team coming to your building.
No brainer for me.
You do not get out of that game. Having an SEC team like Tennessee coming to Provo is a big deal.
Well, Mississippi State is the only SEC team ever in the history of BYU football that has played in Provo.
So for me, I'm keeping Tennessee. And for the same reasons, although I'm not talking about coming to Provo, you don't get rid of playing Arkansas. The opportunity to go to Arkansas is a big deal.
Well, sure. And BYU gets Arkansas at home this year.
Yes. So you
got to make good on the deal.
Yeah, you can't have them come here and then not go there. So right now, I'm keeping Tennessee. I'm keeping Arkansas. But then the other part of me is like, okay, but you also want to make sure that you're not doing too much before you jump into Big 12 play. So for me, that screams you keep Southern Utah.
Okay.
Sorry, T-Birds. And then you get rid of Utah State. Because between Utah State and Southern Utah, Utah State is the tougher team. And that game's at Maverick Stadium.
Listen, Jason, that's a rough road trip. Anything north of Ogden is just absolutely brutal.
Yes. Isn't everything north of Ogden still Ogden? Is that joke still funny?
I'm laughing right now.
So for me, I'm keeping Tennessee, I'm keeping the road game at Arkansas, and then I'm keeping Southern Utah, and I'm dropping Utah State. And look, if you're not keeping one of the Tennessee and Arkansas games, then I'm fine keeping Utah State and dropping Southern Utah. But if you're going with both, like I would be in this scenario, I'm dropping Utah State and going, again, the easier team in Southern Utah.
Yeah, the opportunity to have two SEC teams on the same schedule and to uphold your end of the deal, specifically with Arkansas, and then get the payback from having played at Neyland Stadium in Knoxville and already done the white checkerboard and orange with the Volunteers and all that hoopla and then the Micah Miracle. Like, you want that game back.
Right.
Yeah, BYU already paid their dues to go on the road to earn that home game with Tennessee. And if I'm being completely honest, I know Tennessee, they've got huge football players, one of those SEC lines. They seem to be getting a little bit better. They're trending in the right direction. That's a winnable game for me when I look at BYU's schedule in 2023. I don't think, oh man, no way BYU is going to beat Tennessee in Provo. Come on. Like, BYU fans probably expect BYU to win that game based on what's happened recently with BYU against Power 5 opponents. So keep the game against Tennessee. Hold up your end of the deal at Arkansas. And then, yes, you absolutely need a break. Now, of note, the game against Southern Utah is scheduled for Saturday, November 18th. I am guessing, and this is pure conjecture on my part, that BYU is moving or will attempt to move that November 18th game against Southern Utah to September 9th or September 23rd. Maybe they have a bye between Tennessee and Arkansas. They play one game, they sit out a week, and then they play Tennessee.
Makes some sense.
Or they play Tennessee, they play Southern Utah, so they have two home games, and then they go on the road at Arkansas before you open up Big 12 play. Maybe the bye is on September 23rd to give you 2 weeks to get set for Big 12 play. That's what I would do. And I like the series with Utah State. I like in-state rivalries. I think they are fun games. It's why jokes that we bring up are funny to us and super annoying to the other fan base. And Utah State has stupid jokes that they think are funny that we find annoying as well. Like, I like those things, but in this scenario, Utah State is the odd man out. It just does not make any sense unless BYU only plays an 8-game Big 12 schedule to keep the Aggies on the schedule.
And it doesn't feel like that's the direction it's going. By all accounts, and you alluded to this, by all accounts, it feels like it's going to be a 9-game conference schedule moving forward in the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be 8, especially with 14 teams. I would imagine you will play 6 teams. Well, 6 teams in your division, right? Because 2 7-team divisions, right? So you'll play every team in your division every year, and then you will play 3 of the other half, and that will rotate every other year.
Yep.
It just makes too much sense.
Yep.
So plan on a 9-game schedule there, and then, hey, sorry, Utah State, but it just needs to be Southern Utah so BYU has some type of breather because that is going to be an absolutely brutal schedule, which is why deep down I hope I hope that Jaron Hall is like, you know what, I want to play one more year at BYU. And he's the guy to lead BYU into the Big 12 because that is a lot to ask a new quarterback to face.
Off topic of this, but something that you just touched on, we're getting to the end of April now. May is going to be here very, very quickly. We're going to probably have a good idea in the next 3 to 4 weeks when that meeting happens in May with all of the ADs, what that conference is going to look like.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to know in all likelihood within the next month.
Well, BYU gets their first Big 12 schedule in October. It will be released in October. They will know the full 2023 schedule.
Well, we're going to know the 9 versus 8 and what the divisions are, who you're going to face every year and who you're going to face every other year. We should know the answers to that within the next month.
Loaded show today, if you can't tell, from the gritty to scheduling. We'll talk about Tyler Allgeier's best fit according to the desires of our hearts, but not before our question of the day. If you can only keep 3 of the 4 games remaining on BYU's 2023 schedule, which opponent doesn't make the cut? Arkansas, Tennessee, Southern Utah, or Utah State? You tell us which team and why in Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
All right, we have just over 200 votes in right now. Just put this out a few minutes ago. And of those votes, 45% of you say drop Utah State. Almost 42% say drop Southern Utah.
That shocks me.
Really?
Why would you
really drop Southern Utah? No, BYU needs a breather.
You need it. You need a break there.
They need a breather.
Yeah. That makes. I completely disagree with the 41.6% that say drop Southern Utah.
Instagram has 75% dropping Southern Utah.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
Again, think about this. This is Utah State in Logan. This is on the road. Why would you keep a road game at Maverick Stadium over
against a tougher opponent?
The idea of playing an FCS foe in Provo. No, go for the extra home game. BYU would have 7 home games also if they keep Southern Utah. You would think. 5 at worst 4 Big 12 games, but you got to have at least 6 home games. So keep Southern Utah in Provo.
Yeah, those numbers really surprise me.
Goodbye road contest in Logan. But, hey, the fans speaking their minds. Hashtag BYUSN, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
All right, coming up, what should BYU get for the school that got them something?
And one of our all-time favorites is a former All-Pro tight end, BYU legend Chad Lewis is going to join us to discuss the draft and what those undrafted guys can expect when they're trying to pursue their NFL dreams, because he did it. He lived it. This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by the Tim Daly Auto Group, serving Utah since 1968.
Those who leave the most meaningful legacy seem to be the ones who never intended to. The same person who loses himself seems to be the same that finds himself. And why? Well, they give the best of who they really are with no thought of return. Find a cause you can put your heart into, my son, in which to lose yourself. I started the Deseret Donor Advised Fund for this reason. Because in the end, my greatest legacy is you.
This child will one day be a great chief.
Pull, boy, pull! We'll make a fisherman out of you here.
One day I'll come back to take care of you. I promise. Am I in heaven?
You were lucky you washed up what you did.
Since you're with us, I start to show you around.
A long time ago, I made a promise to somebody I cared for very much. This is my way of keeping that promise.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Softball hosts Santa Clara this weekend for a 3-game series. It begins with a doubleheader tonight. Watch the game live at 7 Eastern on the BYU TV app.
Hopefully we're watching Violet Zavodnik do the gritty over home plate after one of her home runs, because that's her thing, and she's done it 11 times this year.
Are they going to bring that up on the broadcast tonight? They're going to have to show that, right?
Shep, it's in the annals now. Like, I have no control over what.
It's got to be played now.
Absolute horror is going to happen because I attempted that dance. We are live on a Friday. Yes, it is live television alongside Jason Shepard. I am Spencer Linton, and we are super pleased to welcome into Studio B once again NFL All-Pro tight end and current member of the BYU Athletic Department staff, Chad Lewis. Chad, thanks for hanging out.
What's up, guys? 2 real famous quotes. 1, more cowbell. Okay. 2, more Violet. Let's go.
Yes.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
He's a special player.
Do you even know what the gritty is? I didn't know what it was as of this morning. Do you know what that is?
I've been seeing people dance this. It's almost time to graduate from the gritty and do something else, but it's cool.
Okay. All right.
Even Kalani does the gritty when he's excited on the sideline.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
That's his style. Okay.
I see the dances. I just don't know what their names are.
Chad, what was the desirable dance move in the end zone when you were celebrating a touchdown?
Hands up.
Just hands up?
Bam! Like
yes.
That. When you score a touchdown, it should be like, now it's too orchestrated. It should be like raw emotion.
Yeah.
But I don't blame these guys for having something in the bag ready to go.
So when you say hands up, I think about Mitchell Juergens' Starman after he caught that
right.
pass against Boise State.
That was
right?
sweet.
That was pure emotion.
That was pure emotion. And Mitch Matthews did the same thing in Nebraska.
Yes.
I mean, that's just like, bam! That's how it works.
I've also got to think that there's so much emotion going through you at the moment anyway. Even if you had planned it, it probably slips your mind to begin with.
That's why you play the game. Like, if you could buy that type of adrenaline, that's why people are going to crack. I mean, they can't find a way to get that same explosive piece of emotion going through your body.
Yes. Just compete in sports. It's all good.
That's right. Come to sports.
Yes. Chad Lewis is with us on BYU Sports Nation. Tyler Allgeier is a rather low-key guy when he's celebrating his own touchdowns, and he did that a lot in 2021, 23 times. Unbelievable, just on the ground. What do you think Tyler Allgeier's expectations should be for the NFL draft?
I want to hear his name called today.
Me too.
I think he can go today. I think there's a lot of teams that have talked to me how much they like him, and I'm a nobody. I'm not one of the coaches, but I've had scouts say, we love that guy. Love his size. He's much bigger than we thought. I love his what he does in the fourth quarter. So he gets better as the game goes on. He's super humble. And I sat with him and, Andy, we talked about it before. He told Andy, I'm willing to play whatever special teams. Like, hey, do I need to talk to the special teams coach and tell him? And Andy's like, I think you're going to be all right, bro. He said, but yeah, go talk to the special teams coach. You're not going to have to go find him. He'll find you, and it's going to work out just fine.
That's his mentality, though.
Yeah, I know. He wants to play football, and he says, I'll play linebacker. I don't care.
Love it.
He's a great running back. He's proven that against the highest quality competition. He's sweet.
I'm always fascinated because we hear about scouts talking to people and getting information and sharing it back and forth. What type of questions do they ask you guys?
That's a good question because these are smart dudes that do their homework. Then you guys tell me why only 50% of first-round draft picks pan out. What in the world? I thought we were doing our homework.
Right?
You guys.
Right. Wild.
Give me one of those first-round draft picks. I will prove to you I'll make the team. So it's really interesting that 50% of top picks even play and thrive and make a name for themselves.
How about that stat? Whoa.
So what teams are looking for is, what is this guy like off the field? What is he like with his teammates? What is he like in the huddle? What is he like in the moment? Is he scared to carry the ball, or does he want to carry the ball? So those just simple questions, they matter to those guys.
Chad Lewis on BYU Sports Nation. If Tyler doesn't have his name called, and he told us earlier, he's like, I'm kind of expecting 4th round, so early Saturday. Do you start, as a player when you're going through this, and you were an undrafted free agent, but how do you kind of manage those emotions the longer this thing drags on?
As a football player, you want someone to crack the door open so you can kick it in and go play some ball. That might be a free agent. So if you're Samson Akua, Neil Pau'u, James Empey, whoever, it could be as a free agent. There's nothing wrong with going in as a free agent. I think it's to your advantage. Here's why. When you're in the draft, 5th, 6th, 7th round, teams are going to start calling you and they're going to say, will you come to our camp? You're going to have a list of teams. Now it's your choice where you go, and hopefully you've done your homework. Hopefully you know I knew exactly what quarterback, what offensive coordinator, and who they had drafted, who was there. So I made the best decision for me to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. It worked. So these guys are going to have a chance real quickly to decide where they're going to go. In my case, teams were calling. There were 14 teams. One of them was the Kansas City Chiefs. Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach. I ran out the door with Michelle just to catch our breath real quick and make a decision. Marty, head coach, called my house. My dad picked up the phone. My dad's had a stroke. My dad doesn't know football really well. And Marty's like, hey, is Chad there? No, he just went out. He'll be back in just a second. We want him to come to the Chiefs. He's like, okay, who should I tell him's calling? Marty Schottenheimer. My dad's like, okay, how do you spell that? So he started to spell it. Then he just got ticked. He's like, you just tell him the head coach called, okay? So when I got back, my dad told me the story. I was cracking up. It was so funny. So,
can you spell Schottenheimer, please?
I love it. My dad wanted to get it right for me, and I was just like, oh, Dad, I love you so much. That's so good.
That's so great.
So what type of NFL career do you envision for Tyler Allgeier?
An excellent one because he's productive, because he's humble. He's not going to let other things get in the way. Andy Reid's mantra was remove distractions. Tyler does a phenomenal job, and he's demonstrated that here, of removing distractions. When you saw his deep blue, you saw here's a guy that has 50 distractions that could sink a normal man. He thrived under those conditions. So whatever DNA he has to be able to thrive under those conditions, that's a real gift. And so I see him having a great career because he can thrive when chips are down, when there's distractions, when there's a million reasons for him to give up and quit. He's not going to do that.
Well, the two things that really stand out to me about Tyler when I think about him and his career at BYU, one is his durability. He was always available when BYU needed him.
He's an Iron Man.
The other part is yards after contact. You're not taking this guy down on first hit. You're just not. I have to think from an NFL perspective, both of those things would be enticing.
I know. The two things about him, yards after contact and his ability to finish.
Yeah.
When you think about running backs getting all the way to the end zone from a deep run, very few of them can pop it and hit it and finish. He kept doing that through his whole career, whether it was Boise State or Utah State. I mean, those runs where he broke free and they couldn't catch him, that was so impressive.
Even in the bowl game at UAB.
Yeah, that's Tyler Allgeier. He's got that gear, even though he's a big dude.
Yeah.
So he's going to get the yards after contact, and he's got the speed to finish.
He's got that suddenness, that twitch. Patient, boom! And then through the hole, right? It is like... It's next level. It's
slow to fast through. That's what running backs say. But the sweet thing about him is you talk to him and you just want to grab his face and give him a hug. Like he's the sweetest dude ever. I love him.
Absolutely. Okay, I think it's probably James Empey. Maybe it's Samson Nakua. But if someone is to have their name called in a latter round, who do you think that would probably be?
You probably want to look at the pro day workout that they had. Samson lit up that pro day workout with times, strength, demonstration of his athletic ability, and then his charisma. You can't bottle his charisma. He's got something so explosive, and you saw that against Utah when we played them this year. Like, his energy was contagious for every member of our football team. That's really a special gift in football. So he plays with that happiness. He's got it. So his pro day was exceptional. James could go. Neil is an enigma for teams. They like him. They're like, man, this is a big dude, but he's so smooth with his routes. He's got great hands. He's like, there's so many things to love about him too. So I don't know who it's going to be. I hope they're drafted for their sake. Meaning, I hope they get as much money as they can in the NFL as possible. If they go free agent route, there's nothing wrong with that, and they should look at that as that's to their advantage in every way. Step into camp, light that thing up.
So last year there was, obviously with Zach going number 2, I mean, the hype around everything was so great, but also you had the number of guys being drafted. This year, certainly one, hopefully 2 or more, But what do you think should be the norm moving forward as it pertains to the success that the team has? Because obviously, the more guys you have getting drafted, that means the players on the team were good, which means the team was likely good. Where do you feel is that sweet spot for the number of guys taken and what that means for the football program in general?
Incredible question, because when I look way back to 96, we had one player drafted. And we were a team loaded with guys that we ended up playing for a long time, a bunch of us in the league.
That was Atula, right?
Yeah. So
in the 7th round.
Right. I mean, and he was coming off a total knee, ACL, MCL, PCL, LCL. And so I don't know. But what you do see is when teams start drafting more players, it's indicative of a coaching staff doing a better job recruiting, talent evaluation, a better job with the strength coaches through their career of developing that player. And when they're drafted, it really is a hallmark of your team that you're going in the right direction. That's what you want. Yeah. You want your players to get drafted. And then the next generation, the recruits, do you think they're watching that? You better believe it.
Absolutely.
Do you think their parents are watching that? Big time. They want to go pro. Is your club going to give them an opportunity to go pro? And I think BYU's proving, yes, we're an incredible team, incredible coaching staff. We want them to come here and thrive and go to the NFL.
That's one of the things, and if memory serves, I want to say Kalani said it either when he was officially named the head coach or pretty soon after, that's one of his goals is to get guys to the NFL. And I love the fact that he's being outspoken about that, because, I think that's fantastic. That absolutely should be a goal. One
of his greatest gifts, and it's a gift, is building culture. Yeah. With culture comes vision, direction. He's able to build the culture that he wants. He's getting very comfortable with who he is as a coach and how he's doing it. And I told him last night, he was in the presence of all the coaches in Utah. I said, you have such a great gift at building culture. And I think the recruits feel that. They see it. The more wins you get on Saturday, the more people are going to come here and play for BYU.
Well, it's no surprise that BYU is pacing to have 3, 4, maybe 5 draft picks next year. Got a lot of talent coming back. Chad, so great to talk with you. Thanks for hanging out with us during the NFL draft weekend and for bringing your energy and charisma
Marty
to this.
Schottenheimer.
That's a great story.
It's S-C.
You just tell him the head coach.
It's so bad.
What a great story.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, thanks, you guys.
All right, coming up, will last year be more like the years to come for BYU in the NFL draft?
And is Trevor Maddich an underrated media personality? Hey, why not?
That beard was.
That list has been made. We're going to discuss it next. This is BYU Sports Nation.
They prefer to be bringing the heat, getting set for success, demonstrating their drive. But when their blood and sweat turns to tears or anything else, we lay the groundwork for BYU's athletes to hit the ground running again, and you as well. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
Introducing the Truck for Adventure. The all-new 2022 Nissan Frontier doesn't compromise on power or comfort. This midsize truck was redesigned to incorporate the latest technology and designs for safety, comfort, and convenience. Plus, with up to 6,700 pounds of towing capacity and best-in-class horsepower, it's rugged enough for adventure and still safe enough to transport all your favorite people. Where's your new Frontier? You'll find it at Tim Dowling Nissan Southtown in South Jordan.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Turn TV time into together time with the BYU TV app. Watch all your favorite shows when, where, and how you want.
This isn't like a practical joke, is it?
No, sir. Immerse yourself in stories with all the feels. Go on uninterrupted journeys of discovery. and see families coming together while watching with your own. See new and original content, all for free on the BYU TV app.
BYU Sports Nation has its own YouTube channel. Get all the interviews as well as BYU Sports Nation Right Now episodes by subscribing to and sharing the BYU Sports Nation YouTube channel.
He is Jason, who opposes the Griddy. I am Spencer, who embraces the Griddy.
I don't oppose the Griddy. I oppose doing the Griddy. There's a difference.
I stand corrected. This is BYU Sports Nation on a Friday. To interact with the show and get content throughout the day, you know what to do. Follow us on all the major social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. I know you're a big TikTok guy with all those dance moves, Jason.
Yeah. Let me give you my account. Oh, wait. I don't have one.
Let's whip it. The Cougar Whip Around presented by Maersk, your integrated container logistics company, enabling global trade for a growing world.
I'm really coming off as the get off my lawn guy today. All right. Man alive. All right. Was the fact that no running backs were drafted a good or bad thing for BYU's Tyler Allgeier?
I don't think that I put too much stock into the idea that, oh, man, like there were no running backs taken in the first round, so he's going to slide all the way down. Running backs are a different beast in the NFL now. I expect a bunch to go in the second and third rounds. So first round, whatever. If there are a few running backs taken in the second and third rounds, that's when I need to be concerned. But right now, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I'm ultimately, I don't think it's good or bad. I'm somewhat indifferent on it for a lot of the reasons that you said, but also if you look at some of the best running backs in the NFL right now, most of them are second, third, fourth, even fifth or sixth round guys. I just don't think it matters as much anymore. You don't have to get a running back in the first round anymore to get production and to be able to win games in the NFL anymore.
I think Tyler's still pacing for a mid-fourth round
pick. Look, today's the day, though, where you start paying attention. Third round, third to fifth, that's the area where he's going to be drafted.
ESPN college football analyst Trevor Maddich comes in at number 49 on the top 100 best media personalities in college football list from Big Game Boomer. And for the record, he's tied to BYU because he's always on BYU Sports Nation.
Yeah.
Okay? Do you think he should be higher or better ranked on that list?
Look, I do. Now, granted, we're going to be biased because we know him, we like him, he's a former Cougar, he joins the show all the time. I also think he's really, really good at what he does. So, honestly, I would have had him higher than that.
Well, they got Reese Davis at number 25, which I think is just an abomination.
That's way too low for Reese.
So, Reese is way too low. Trevor's way too low. I'd probably put Trevor in the top 25 and Reese somewhere up in the top 10.
Oh, Reese Davis easily in the top 10. That's not even in question in my mind. All right, Ashley Hatch has 6 goals in the Challenge Cup, leading the NWSL. She led the league in the regular season last year. How long do you think she can continue her reign as the scoring queen of the NWSL?
Well, I think it's going to last at least through this year. So it's going to be 2 years running, maybe 3. There's a reason that she's competing for the United States women's national soccer team. Like, she's going to be in the World Cup, Jason, representing BYU.
Yeah.
So this reign that she's having scoring goals, it's gonna last for this year. It'll be at least 2 years. And who knows? Why not? Why cap it there? Why not go 3 years in a row?
Look, I'm not putting a cap on this at all. She is one of the best former Cougars in the pros. Her career probably hasn't even scratched the surface on what she can do, not just in the NWSL, but with Team USA and everything moving forward. So I'm not gonna say that there is a top to this at all.
Jason, Jerry Bohannon, the Baylor quarterback, has entered the transfer portal. Does this essentially guarantee a BYU victory over Baylor when the Bears make the return trip to Provo early next season?
You know, Spencer, I'm going to need a guarantee. It doesn't guarantee anything. I think what you should be hanging your hat on is the fact that Jared Hall is back.
Yes.
This game is in Provo, and BYU knows what happened in Waco, and they want an opportunity to rectify it.
Yes.
That's what should give you more hope than the fact that Jerry, don't call me Gary Bohannon.
Sure. Shout out to Parks and Rec.
Yes.
You know. No, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it does make BYU's chances better, certainly.
Yeah.
If you have the quarterback matchup head-to-head, and it's clearly advantage BYU, and you're at home, yeah, it helps.
Okay, this one, speaking of Baylor football sent a gift for BYU football, and it's the Stretch Y with the Big 12 logo piece that they had displayed when BYU went to Baylor last year. This was actually in the broadcast booth, which is really, and apparently they do that for all the visiting teams that come into town. What should BYU's return gift to Baylor be?
How about a big old L when they play each other in football?
Well, that's not being nice. Now, I hope that they do get the L, but that's...
Okay, fine. It seems a little petty and vindictive, but BYU's already given Baylor the gift. It's Caleb Lohner. The gift has already been given, Jason. I didn't want to give that one away either.
Yeah. What should we give them? Like a gift? I don't know. Maybe a gift card to Maverick or something? Get them like a gift card.
Hey, thanks for this super nice framed picture of the Big 12. Here's a Maverick gift.
Proclamation to the family. How about that? We give them one of those.
That might resonate. They're a religious school.
That's what I'm saying. But by the way, really disappointed that logo in the Big 12, the piece of art, which I like to call it, that did not end up at my house because I would put that up in a second.
Jason, did you know that the Big 12 logo has been in Studio B since the inception of this show on television?
Do you know it's been in my heart my entire life?
It has.
Okay.
Yeah, little Easter egg back here. It's been here since 2014. We're just foreshadowing things that are going to happen. All right, let's go.
All right, coming up, we update today's poll question: which team doesn't make your cut?
And is the future for BYU football in the NFL draft a boom or a bust? Seems like a boom next year, Jason. This is BYU Sports Nation.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
Follow the ups and downs of elite young gymnasts in an exclusive behind-the-scenes look as they twist, flip, and bounce their way to the podium. See the commitment, effort, and mindset it takes for these competitors to rule their sport on Gym Stars, on BYU TV, or on the free app.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Baseball looks to bounce back on the road after dropping Game 1 at San Francisco yesterday afternoon. Catch Game 2 today, 4 Eastern, on the BYU radio app. It's a big series for the Cougars.
Oh, man. Pressure's on for sure. Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation live from Studio B. Today is the day, we hope, where Tyler Allgeier gets his name called to an NFL team. If it's not today, we think it's going to be early on Saturday in the 4th round. But either way, he'll know by the end of Saturday where he's going to be pursuing his NFL dream. Jason, you know, as much as I want to say, what's the best fit for Tyler Allgeier? It's not about that because there were 29 teams at BYU's Pro Day, 29 of the 32 NFL teams. Okay, so clearly there's a lot.
Wasn't it your Bengals who weren't there?
Yeah, what the heck, man?
What, they don't like good players?
Apparently not. Apparently they don't want to draft Tyler Allgeier and help
maybe
that would have
been
the Super Bowl.
Maybe that would have been the difference in the Super Bowl. Obviously you wouldn't have made it because we would have beat you. Really, the Chiefs would have.
You're such a Chiefs fan. I respect it.
Yes.
I respect it.
Still hurts.
Yeah, well, go Bengals. Okay, Jason, let's throw out the best fit because, clearly his skill set will fit anywhere.
Yeah.
He's so versatile. Where do you want Tyler Allgeier to end up?
See, I don't know these rosters up and down to say, okay, well, it's certainly this team. I want him to go to the place, and I realize I'm talking in circles here. It says, what's the best fit? I want him to go where it is the best fit, because it's not about the where you're drafted. It's about who you're drafted by and how they plan to use you. I love the idea early on. Certainly, special teams is going to be how he's used. That's how a lot of these young players are used. But I think Tyler Allgeier at the NFL is a perfect third down back, because a lot of things that we talked about with Chad Lewis in terms of his ability to take a hit, yards after the catch. If you're needing those tough yards, he can give them to you. Oh, and by the way, to what you brought up, not only can he get those tough yards and be physical, he also has the speed, which is such a great combination for a running back. So, look, I would love for him to go to my Chiefs, but that's a selfish thing that probably isn't going to happen. I want him to go to a place that they're going to give him a legitimate chance to be an NFL running back, because I think that's what he is. I think he's shown that at the college ranks, and I think there is no question in my mind that this is a guy that could have a 10-year career in the NFL.
Man, he just watching his highlights right now on BYU TV. He just is a special football player for sure. His ability to find, to tick, 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 boom, and then explode through the hole by the offensive line is just, it's next level. And I think it fits with most teams. Again, 29 of the 32 were here at Pro Day. Any of them would be a good fit for Tyler Allgeier. But I do like, because of the way he plays football, the black and blue history and the teams that are associated with old school, hard-nosed, physical football.
So you're talking like the Bears, the
Steelers, the Packers. Yeah, the Bears, the Raiders.
Please no.
I know you don't want Tyler to be on an opponent against your Kansas City Chiefs in the same division, but the Raiders, the Steelers, the Bears, the Packers, they kind of embody his physical style of play.
Well, and look, it's also going to depend on the type of quarterback that they have. Because if you have a quarterback that is a running quarterback, that's obviously going to eat some of the carries away from the running backs in general. So maybe you do want to go to a pass-first, pro-style type offense where they use a running back more traditionally.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's another option.
Well, now that you mentioned the quarterback thing, I was also thinking about this.
To be honest with you, Cincinnati actually makes a whole lot of sense if we're talking about a specific team.
Isn't that how it so often happens? The team that's not there, at the Pro Day, they just draft him, and you're like, what?
I know.
I was totally not expecting that. That happens so much. But I want him to be able to play with a good quarterback. I really do. I thought about that on the commute in today. I was like, man, I just want Tyler to be in a situation where he has a top 10 NFL quarterback, because that will help him a lot. It'll take pressure off of him as an offensive player transitioning into his rookie season. If they're throwing it all over the place and defenses are having to guess, guess what? You're going to have probably just a breakout rookie season, because things are going to happen. You're going to have more opportunity. Teams are going to be able to key on you.
All right, so I want to ask you this question, and we touched on this with Chad, talking about kind of what the future looks like in terms of the NFL draft for BYU. This year, one for sure, hopefully more, but obviously not like the 5 that we saw last year when Zach went and,
Yeah, that's tied for second most in BYU football history, along with 3 other years.
So I guess, what do you feel is more likely moving forward? Is it closer to the 1 or 2 that we may see this year, or is it closer to the 5 that we saw last year?
With BYU transitioning into a Power 5 conference, I'm leaning more towards 3 or 4. 3 or 4 picks on average every year, just because of the type of recruit that BYU will get and is getting right now. BYU is probably going to have at least 4 draft picks next year. We think Jaron Hall is going to go very early. Blake Freeland is a draft pick. Peyton Wilgar, probably a draft pick. Puka Nacua, can he be a draft pick? among others. Like, who else is going to take the next step next year? Kingsley Suamataia, is he going to have a fantastic year and take his 5-star status? And NFL teams are like, hey, we saw enough from you at BYU in that one season. Let's develop you in the pro league. Come. Is he going to be a 5th draft pick? I'm leaning more towards 3 or 4 every year as BYU makes the move into a Power 5 conference. They'll just get better recruits. It's going to happen based on the nature of the conference that they're playing in, the money that they will have because of that, and the ability to develop resources and different training facilities on campus. Yeah, that's going to happen.
See, for me, I think it is more than reasonable every year, especially with going into the Big 12, the recruits, getting, hopefully that the recruiting starts to ramp up a little bit and you're starting to get maybe these higher profile players coming in like you were just talking about. I think the 2 to 3 is absolutely reasonable and leaning more towards the 3 than to the 2. If you go back in BYU's history, and really, I kind of looked from the 80s on, really. So 81 and 86, you had 7.
7.
But you got to remember, there was also a lot more rounds in the NFL draft.
Sure, it went to, 12 or 13 rounds? 12 rounds, yeah.
So in 81 and 86, you had 7. In 85, 95, 02, and 21, you had 5. So I think that 3, if you can get to 4 every year, but I think that sweet spot is if you can have 3 draft picks every year, that's kind of the goal. And I think that will tell you where the BYU program is, not just in the eyes of the NFL, but in terms of wins and losses during the season. If you've got 3 NFL guys on your roster every year, you're always going to be successful and in the running, especially now that you have something to play for in terms of a conference championship.
BYU is pacing now, getting back to those offensive lines, of having an offensive lineman drafted in every year from 2023 on. Like that's probably going to happen, which is a fantastic sign because that's where they hung their hat in the 80s and in the late 90s and early 2000s. Like BYU was having a bunch of guys drafted from the offensive line. So, it starts there. Linebacker, like BYU should have linebackers and tight ends and offensive linemen, right? And then if you throw in a quarterback now and again, now we're talking about that 4 draft picks, right?
Yeah.
Per year.
I think that is very, very reasonable. And it's a realistic goal for BYU to have moving forward. And that's fun to think about because that means a whole lot of winning along the way. In all likelihood.
A whole lot of winning has happened.
Yeah, agreed.
11 in 2020, 10 wins in 2021. How many in 2022?
All right, coming up, rise and shout out to a guy who's about to have a big weekend.
And which team did not make the final cut in today's poll question about which team BYU needs to drop on the 2023 football schedule? This is BYU Sports Nation.
My name is Spencer Finnegan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. During my sophomore year, I got married to my sweetheart, Mary, and there's tons of unexpected expenses when it comes to marriage. We were looking for scholarships. I found the replenishment grant, and my local alumni chapter gave me a grant to help me focus in on school. I'm so excited to, now that I've graduated, give back to those students that are coming to BYU in the future.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Mark?
Some of my favorite moments are hearing from the family room, just a chorus of laughter.
Twas your mother's.
BYU TV has been an escape and a refuge for me.
We forgot about random acts.
We love that one.
Today we wanted to do something nice for you.
I see that change on him after that show.
It just brightened everybody's day.
I can do this. I want to live my life in a way that show showed me.
Paul Brandt is laying his guitar aside and picking up a hammer.
There actually are things that can be done to help people in situations like this.
This is our house for real.
I don't think you can ever dream too much.
As the receivers become the givers, they in turn help themselves. Watch Paul Brandt's Build It Forward on BYU TV or with the free app.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation, always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU Radio apps.
Or download the podcast. Just Google BYU Sports Nation podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review.
Our question of the day. If you could only keep 3 of the 4 games remaining on BYU football's 2023 schedule, which opponent doesn't make the cut? Arkansas, Tennessee, Southern Utah, or longtime rival Utah State? Twitter poll response. Out of almost 400 votes thus far, 46.5% say drop Utah State, which is on par with what we
That's
say.
what we think should
happen. And this is not because I don't want the rivalry game to continue. I just think BYU needs to take advantage of the 2 SEC opponents and hold up their end of the deal with Arkansas. And then they need a breather against Southern Utah, and it's a home game.
Look, let's be honest. If you're upset as an Aggie fan, this is a backhanded compliment is what we're giving you.
Yes.
If you think about it.
Yes. Utah State is a good team.
It's a good team.
They're a good team, and that game is in Logan.
Yes.
Like, BYU needs a break. They'll have 11 Power 5s on the schedule. Is it Utah State or Southern Utah? Southern Utah and Provo over Utah State and Logan. Jim Roberts on Twitter says Arkansas and Tennessee are the back half of home and home, so BYU keeps those.
Yep.
Utah State doesn't really need us to help make their athletic budget. Southern Utah just might need BYU's money to make their athletic budget work. Plus, there's the whole I'm tired of Utah State injuring our quarterbacks thing. That absolutely is a factor.
Hey, speaking of, Taysom Hill was at the Jazz game last night throwing out footballs.
Oh, okay.
The game, I don't know how that ended. I can't remember.
All right, our Elite Voice of the Day presented by Sundance Mountain Resort has absolutely nothing to do with our poll question.
You are famous, my
friend.
friend.
My goodness. See, I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen.
This is why you watch a tutorial on how to do
not a joke.
things.
The creator of the Griddy. The creator of the dance.
Stephen W. Griddy. No,
La Griddy 2X. In response to BYU Sports Nation saying, how would you rate Spencer Linton's Griddy, responded with 5 laughing until I cry emojis.
How do you interpret that, by the way? That we were doing it, or that
I should be embarrassed?
Your version of the Griddy.
Come on, yeah, of course. He needs to laugh. I appreciate the honest feedback.
The guy that invented the dance saw your Griddy.
Oh, boy. And sent 5 laughing until I cry emojis.
You're big
in
time.
Response. Oh,
you are big time.
I know. I appreciate the honest feedback. You know, it is what it is. I knew I was going to get roasted. Why not get roasted by the guy that created the dance?
Wow. L-A-H Griddy, huh?
Power of social media, Jason.
Look, it makes the world very small.
Yes, I can't wait. Oh, look at white BYU guy trying to do the Griddy. I'm going to get 17 million tweets making fun of me today. You know what? Don't care.
Wonder when the guy who created the Foxtrot is going to jump on and say.
What does the fox say? Today's Rise and Shoutouts presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. Jason, who gets it?
How about Tyler Allgeier? We expect to hear his name either later tonight or early tomorrow. Good luck to him. Can't wait to see where he goes.
Special thanks to our guest today, Chad Lewis, who was fantastic. Conversation continues 24/7. For Jason, I am Spencer. Shout out to La Griddy 2X. Go Cougs.